All right, we're going live.
All right.
Morning, guys. How's everybody doing? Thank y'all for tuning in. Once y'all get on the stream, go ahead and check in on our comment section. We'd love to know who's here, who's watching today, who's with us. I'm gonna take a step, get y'all out of the lights. Oh man, Kathy Friedenreich says she's been looking at the countdown. We need to have this when we're back in the parish hall. Shelly Lackey's here. Laura Meadows is here. Staff's got a strong presence already. Who else is here? You guys check in. Let's see who all's here. Oh man, we got John Friedenreich. 2 Friedenreichs? Oh my gosh. I had a rule for a while that anytime I went to Kroger, I saw at least 3 to 4 Friedenreichs. So I feel like I'm back at Kroger. Carol Duncan in the house. Robbie Lackey, let's give him some credit. Y'all, Robbie Lackey is 3 for 3 on Sunday school. You believe that? We had to have a pandemic to get Robbie Lackey into Sunday school 3 out of 3 times, 100%. Bob and Kay Blackwell, here we go. That's what I'm talking about. Y'all, it's not easy to record children's chapel videos when you got Bob Blackwell on staff. It's like trying to play a little pickup ball against Michael Jordan. It's just not. It's not right. It's not fair. Sheila, let us know who you are. Who's in here? Oh man, Mary Pyland. Mary Pyland checking in. Mary Pyland, how many services are you live streaming today? I know you're checking in on the Catholics. I know you're checking in on the Lutherans. Over under, Kathy on 6. Mary on 6 church services today, cross denominations. Charlie Friedenreich in the house too. 3 Friedenreichs. I'm in the produce section of Kroger. I feel like I'm looking at the zucchinis and a Friedenreich's coming around the corner. I also love seeing the Friedenreich van around town. That's also a good day. Bobby Duncan in the house. Mary Pyland says no Lutherans today, just Catholics and Episcopalians. All right, Bobby Duncan. Y'all, do you remember last week Carol Duncan was promising that Bobby was going to come serenade us, and I'm still waiting on that. Maybe in the next few weeks. All right, a couple more minutes. You guys keep checking in. I want to keep here. This is awesome. So if you're curious, we're down here in the Undercroft today, where we usually do children's chapel. Hoping the internet's strong down here. Trying to not blind y'all with the lights. Got a real glare coming off. Don, let us know who you are. Man, Steve Adams in the house. That's what I'm talking about. Joe and Claire Twardy. Great to hear from you guys. Charlotte Harris on the call. That's what I'm talking about. Charlotte, thanks for jumping on. Who else we got? Sandra Clay. Good morning. Hope you're doing great. Shelly says your forehead is cut off. Maybe back up a bit. Shelly, I'm trying to cut out the baldness. Did you see the reflection that's coming in off this dome? I promise I'm way less bald in person. Charlie Friedenreich. Good morning, brother. Glad you're here. All right, let's give it another minute, and then I'm going to introduce you all to a special guest that I'm pretty pumped about. All right, guys, thank you all for being here for our coffee talk with the clergy. Last week, for reasons that pass understanding, I went ahead and started our coffee hour concerts. I played a Matt Mayer song that I couldn't really sing, and you guys were incredibly kind about that. So I brought in a ringer this morning. Bill and Josie Walsh in the house. That's fantastic. I brought in a ringer this morning. I want to introduce to you one of our senior EYC leaders, my friend, recent graduate of Opelika High School, our own Caleb Beatrice. Come on over here, Caleb.
Hey, folks.
All right, y'all. Caleb, like I said, Caleb has been one of our senior leaders. Done a great job of showing the younger students the rope and setting an example with his faith and with his integrity. He's headed to Detroit next year, and he is he's going to be a music major. He's going to major in classical guitar. He's already a part of one of their ensembles. So watch this space, because this guy's going to do cool things, and he's told me he's going to keep us updated on everything that's going on with him and his career. All right, we're gonna do mainly Caleb. I'm going to try to get out of his way. We're going to do a couple songs this morning. Let's go ahead and kick it off. Caleb, get it front and center, and I'll stand behind you.
This first song is Nothing I'll Hold On To. Hope y'all enjoy.
With my hands wide open, I will climb this mountain. With my hands wide open, I will climb this mountain. With my hands, there's nothing I hold on to. 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 I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me. I give it all to you, God, trusting that you'll make something beautiful out of me.
All right, brother. Nice work. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
All right, team. Caleb's gonna do another one, and the song that Caleb's about to do, he did for our youth retreat this past year, and man, we did it for our final worship of the evening. Shelly and the interns had some candles and some lights out, and it was to me, it was one of our highlights of our UIC year. So it was an awesome moment. He's gonna do it again for us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, following you.
I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Around for me, melody, surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies. So Lord, my fears are gone, and I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. In mother's womb, you've chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. rescue me, and I will stand and sing. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice work, brother.
Thank you.
Y'all, let's give it up for Caleb. He's the man. Thank you, brother. Thanks for being with us.
Appreciate it. Glad I could be here.
All right, man. Nice work. Oh man, we got a lot of comments. Man, people been loving it. Steve Adams says Woodstock, Episcopal style. Oh man, Caleb, thanks, brother.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all for listening, and I want to thank Caleb for coming on. Want to say a couple things, and then I want to ask y'all a question to tune in with. I want y'all to look out this week. We're going to send y'all a survey to ask you. It's going to be a very simple survey to ask some questions about when we can offer an in-person option for returning back to worship, which we hope to do in June. Not sure when in June or what that will look like, but we want to gather some data to start answering those questions. And I know y'all are on the same page with me on this, but I do want to emphasize this is not really a return to anything, because the future looks like a new normal based on our shared traditions. And also, we've never left, right? All the ministries of the church have continued during this time. We're going to keep doing the online worship. We're just going to add some in-worship components, some in-person components. And this is just the early phase. So this is not a phase for everybody necessarily to come back. Anyone who is high risk, anyone who is worried about gathering in groups, that's an understandable concern. We're going to do everything we can to mitigate those risks, but it won't be a zero risk activity. We're gonna do our best, and we're gonna take the precautions that we think that we can and should take. But also know, if you don't come back in this first phase, or if you want to, but there's just not room because of the space limitations, you haven't missed anything. It's going to be a slow build. We're gonna keep adding in-person options until God leads us to a new way of serving, leads us into a new normal. So look out for that survey. And any information that we have about what you think you might do would be super helpful to us. All right, so new people got checked in. Catherine Israel is in the house. Thank you for jumping in, Catherine. Lynn Causey is here. Pilar Howell is here. That's awesome. So I want to throw it back to you guys. Any questions about the in-person options that we're working toward for June? But also, if you even want to go to the next step, Caleb just sang an awesome song about I'm no longer a slave to fear. And the thing about fear is that it has a tendency to enslave us. It's one of the powers that enslaves people's hearts that St. Paul talks about. So tell me an instance where God enabled you to turn fear over to God, something you were afraid of that you found freedom from, that God was able to lead you to turn over those fears. So what are fears that you've been freed from? That's the spiritual question for today. So any questions, and then throw out your responses. What is a fear that you have been freed of, and how has God moved that way in your life? I can just go ahead and answer for myself, right? So I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I'm very concerned about like how I'm going over and how I'm doing. And in order for us as a team to embrace this new way of worship, this new way of doing fellowship, it pretty much requires me to humiliate myself on the internet at least once a week. And I think before this pandemic, I would have sweated that. I would have been anxious about it. I would have been real tied up in knots about those things. But I feel like God has been leading me to be a new creation, to be a new kind of pastor, and to maybe not take myself so seriously, right? When we take ourselves seriously, it's hard to take Jesus seriously. So that's been something that a fear that I feel like God is freeing me from, as being a part of this community, being a part of this team, trying to do what we're doing. So I want to hear from you guys. Questions, fears. I'm just gonna go ahead and write it in the question box so everybody can see it. Question box, that's not a real thing. Shelley says, for me, the fear of not being in control was a false fear I had. Giving up control to God takes the element of fear down a whole notch. And I bet Shelley is speaking from her experience over the last few months of battling cancer. So thank you for saying that, Shelley. And an amen. I would agree too. My fears are usually linked to some manner of control that I'm just kind of holding on to, white knuckled. And if you think about when you're able to release that, that's freedom. That's what Caleb was singing about. We end up being a slave to the things that we're afraid of, that we're grappled hold to, white knuckling in life. All right, Kay. When we lived in Mintum, we had all these snakes in our yard. and I was terrified. Prayer took that fear away, but not the snakes. but we didn't have to move. I love that story. Okay, and it's my experience too, right? I often turning to God with the things that I'm scared about is often the kind of last thing that I think about. I try to talk myself out of it, try to read a book, listen to a podcast, get on YouTube, talk to people about it, and some of that helps and some of that works. But it's been pretty remarkable to me about the times when I actually have turned to God and said, Lord, free me from this thing. I'm wound up in knots. I know I need you. I can't do it on my own. It's not magic, right? It doesn't happen automatically, except when it does sometimes. Sometimes it's like that, and sometimes it's over a slow process. So that's been my experience. It's been my experience too. Anybody else? Fears that you've been freed from? Carol says prayer has helped me return to work with less fear. Yeah, I think that's a very big deal, right? We're in this time where we're starting to get out in the world and do things that we haven't for a while, and there's some very understandable fear about that. So we can the thing to do in that moment is be a community of prayer together. Francis Fournier says, I think if you trust in God, you have no fear. Even if I think I have lost control, I go wash my hands and say the Lord's Prayer. Love that, Francis. I think that could be our motto for the next few weeks. Washing our hands, saying the Lord's Prayer. That'll work. Robbie Lackey just texted me, asked if I'm wearing pajama pants. Nope. Slacks. The offline comments are usually really good. Mary Pylan says, certainly no longer afraid of being alone for days on end. Prayer and meditation have given so much hope. Love that. Yeah, Mary, I've been in the same boat. I've actually found that I'm more eager to pray over these last few weeks. You know, in the busyness of life previously, it was often hard to find time between, you know, work and parenting and all the many things that we have to do in life. But and there's been days, and not every day, but there's been days where prayer for me has really been get to instead of have to, maybe even need to. And I think hopefully that connects with what you're with what you're saying. I also like what Mary's saying. Like, man, you know, it's hard to be alone for days on end, man. We're not built for that. We're not made for that. As God said, it's not good for man to be alone. And so prayer is a way that we can lean into and invite God's presence in the midst of this isolation. Judy Jones says, after doing the best I can, turning things over to God. Yeah, I really like that. And we've been saying that a lot in our staff over the last few weeks, is that, you know, you can't figure out a new way to do Christian worship because the old way was figured out over 2,000 years. You can't figure out a new way in a week. You can't figure out a new thing in 8 weeks, right? So you just have to work as hard as you can for the time that you've been given during the day. And then you go home, right? And you turn it over to God, and you trust that you can just come to work that next day and then attack it again. For me, prayer is it's not a retreat from life as much as that is it's a huddle with God. It's a time of refreshment to be able to get some distance from what is mine and what is God's, and that distance actually helps to refresh me so I can throw myself back in it. And prayer and hard work and the boundaries, all that kind of works together for me. Yeah, Lee Nick says that she really wants life to come back to normal. Couldn't agree with that more. But the fear of when is that going to happen? And we don't know, right? So there's fear of the unknown. There's fear of will there be a time of normal? Bob Blackwell pointed out a great thing the other day. This is a time of sojourn. This is a time of wandering. We're in the desert, and the folks in the desert didn't know how long that was going to last. But what they did learn in the desert was to follow God to the next step, to the next moment. And when they did that, they became the people of God. So that's what we're supposed to do in this moment. It's not easy, but it's also a wonderful thing. We're going to follow God like the wandering people did in the desert when they followed God as a pillar of fire by day, or a pillar of cloud by day, and a pillar of fire by night. I messed that up last week too. All right, anybody else? All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys for tuning in and for checking in and for your comments. If you got a comment about fear that you didn't get a chance to throw in there, hold on. Sandra Clay says, learning to accept and give the grace for myself that I'm so willing to give to others, especially now. Amen, Sandra Clay. Right? It's, you know, forgiveness for other people. Judgment, law, scorn for myself. That's one of the spiritual challenges of life, and that's something that I need God's help in. That I just that on my own I can't get over the hump. Of. I love that. If you had a comment that you didn't get a chance to get in, email me, Jeff, GEOFF at holytrinitychurch.info. I'd love to correspond with you. Stay tuned. Watch this space for our next coffee hour and our next coffee hour concert. You never know who's going to show up at the tiny altar here at Holy Trinity Coffee Hour. Caleb, get back in here. Get back in here for a second. I want to say thank you to Caleb. This guy's amazing, just like so many of our youth. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thank you.
And we'll see y'all next week.